So Nick, how is faith-based investing different from just traditional investing? What's the difference?
On the surface, they could look pretty similar. At the end of the day, we're still building portfolios from the same tools that you see in the typical portfolio. But with faith-based investing, it starts with a different premise. It's not just about making money. It's with the understanding that everything we have belongs to the Lord. And going, that's in the Psalms. Now we come into the New Testament in 1 Corinthians. We're called to do everything we do as though unto the Lord. So we're starting with that in mind and believing that our portfolios, as an extension of our lives, are under those same guidelines, those same instructions.
Yeah, so it's like if everything belongs to God and we're managing God's money, how would God invest?
Exactly. We're called to be the stewards. We're responsible to the owner, not just to growing our bottom line.
So how do you actually do faith-based investing?
What
does it look like? What are the
it's a little bit of art and science, as we like to talk around our office, but there's really 3 levels to the way that we work on a person's portfolio. The first is we want to ask, what companies do we not want to profit from? This isn't just the market. These are individual companies. And when you choose a company, you are benefiting from the ways that they profit. And so there's practices, there's services, there's goods that we don't want to benefit from. So we're going to look to keep those out of our portfolio. We're not saying we're going to create portfolios that are somehow void of all harm. At the end of the day, we live in a broken world, and we'll do everything we can to avoid that, but we're trying to minimize what we would call a negative screens. After that, we're then looking for companies that produce human flourishing. God has a way He's designed the world to work, and we can choose companies that we think contribute to that. Not just neutral, but actually lead to human flourishing. And last, there's also the opportunity when we become shareholders in a company, we have the opportunity to help that company, encourage, challenge that company to practice their business in more ethical ways, to produce better services, better goods. And so we want to engage with those companies and encourage them to do that as well.
Yeah. It sounds like you talked about the businesses and the companies a lot. It seems like there's a really close tie in your mind between the money you're investing and the actual business you're investing in. I think sometimes people just think, well, I put my money in the market and it's just this money-making kind of ethereal machine, but it sounds like you're thinking very specifically about the businesses.
Yeah.
So you're viewing the investing as actually funding those businesses, as having a direct impact.
And both in funding those businesses and knowing that we're going to profit from them. So if we're profiting from a company that is harming people in the world, we don't think that's consistent with God's ways.
Yeah. How have you seen your clients respond to faith-based investing?
Yeah. I think we've all had this experience in our life when we realize we get to be our whole self in an area. We're not having to leave our faith at the door. It allows us to be more invested in our heart, in our head, not just financially, more invested in what's going on. So behaviorally, we find people are more willing to stick it out in their portfolio, even when things are a little rockier in markets, because that still happens even with a faith-based portfolio. But in addition to that, we just find people have this greater sense of peace, even excitement about their investments, because they know that at some level it's leading to greater human flourishing in the world and not contributing to the brokenness that we see all around us.
And that ability to stick with it probably means they actually get better results in some cases in the long term. Is that right?
A really common misconception is that to invest your values is to give up returns at some level. We haven't seen that to be true. And at the end of the day, we would always advise our clients to do financial planning, which makes it about your goals, the things that God has called you to do, not just about getting the best returns that you can get.